Mr. Nick Frost, you are having quite a year. You're going to be in Star Wars Skeleton Crew, the live action remake of Train Your Dragon, and now Black Cab. This is a remarkable film. You play a twisty cab driver here, dark and going through a lot. Was there anybody that inspired some of this performance here, or did you kind of bring in your own characteristics as you went through it?
Look, I think I'm a big fan of the film Man Bites Dog, and I'm a big fan of the film The Vanishing, and both of those antagonists in those films. Yes, they're serial killers and they're lunatics, but also they're clumsy and they're flawed and they're considering they're monsters, they're really human. You know, we talked a little bit earlier, Bruce and I, about Kathy Bates in Misery, and you know what she does to him to James Caan is just absolutely awful. But getting to that point is kind of cute and you know, a bit sinister, and I just love that about the character, that yes, he gets to a point where he's awful and terrifying, but what's put him there is in fact something that's really, really awful has happened to him, you know. And I like potentially being a character where you could leave the movie theater and think, yeah, he killed that guy, but he was kind of nice. You know, I like that, doing that thing where an audience shouldn't necessarily feel that way, but he's kind of all right, you know.
Right, you created a likable antagonist here. Bruce, when I was watching the final frames of this, I kind of felt like, well, there's room for a sequel. Would that be something that you would love? And what would be fun and groovy in that kind of iteration, do you think?
Oh my word. Yes, there is room there. I mean, you know, we worked quite hard in making sure there were not for sequel reasons, by the way, but that there weren't neat endings. We had a showing at a festival called Grimfest in Manchester, where there were quite a lot of, you know, die-hard horror ghost story fans, and as it's a new world to me, it was really interesting to hear some of the responses, who were very grateful that we hadn't tied everything up very neatly, and asked quite a similar question about what happens to the characters, what happens to him, where does he go? Has Sonova's character become one of these ghosts, or you know, what is, you know? And I think it does lend itself, but the challenge, I suppose, if you went into sequel territory, is Nick's character's whole drive is to try and do something about his dead son. Did he murder his son? Did his wife murder his son? Did he murder his wife? These are all things that can be reanimated in a way. And I suppose I would want to ensure that if there was to be a second Black Cab, that there is enough juice, if you like, to explore Nick's character. Because for me, it is about the characterization, and you've got people doing bad things, even though there might be good people, and how do you continue that kind of iteration? Because there's a Taxi Driver-esque, you can't fail to miss that the shadow of Travis Bickle over this man who wants to do good things, even though he's going about it in wholly all the wrong ways, and you know, desperately wants to be liked, really, particularly by one character. And I think that all of those kind of movie references are kind of crucial, because you're still in the same space of, like, you know, putting a bunch of people into one tiny black space of a moving cab over a journey. And so I do think the possibilities are kind of endless, depending on what kind of themes you want to play with. And yeah, I think, you know, I'm very open to having a conversation with Nick about what are those themes that we might want to. There's that police van again outside your house.
Yeah,
It's come back. The hot Fuzz fans. So So yeah, I would be very open to seeing what other options there could be, because I do think he's a great creation.
Exactly. Black cabs. There's two of them in the sequel. Just a
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, there you
Um,
go. That's brilliant. Love it. Take it. Love
yeah,
that.
Nick, I really love your portrayal here. I mean, it's such a complex character, and there's so much to really unpack with him. But uh, what do you feel really challenged you the most here? And then what can you tell us about the most fun you're having being Gerard Butler's best Viking friend in the live action How to Be Your Dragon?
Okay, so Black Cab, it's you know, when you're shooting a film and it feels like you're acting in a play and you're in a tiny car, it you know, that in itself is a challenge. You know, I think I think what was how I felt very lucky and was getting to work with Sinerva and Luke, you know, because they're fantastic actors. And when the three of you are in a car constantly and you all share a kind of work ethic and you're all willing to put the hours in and to improvise a bit or to have a bit of fun, or it just makes it makes a difficult thing a lot easier, you know, that you're willing to go to bat for everyone else, which is lovely. Um, the best thing about being Gerard Butler's friend is he's just so big and handsome, and you know, you get to have a little cuddle at the beginning of the day, and sometimes at the end too. Um, I had an absolute scream on that film. It was 5 months, and you know, I've been a fan of Gerard's for ages, but then you meet him and you know, he does his homework and he's generous and he's funny and he's a really great actor. He's great to watch. You know, I'm still even 23 years in at a place where I love doing what I do so much. I get a chance to sit back and watch these fantastic actors do fantastic things. You know, it's not lost on me. I love it.
I love that you got a good cuddle in 2 times a day. That's wonderful. You write a lot, of course, and have written a lot. Am I correct in saying you have a unique writing process where you have to have a horror movie on in the background? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I get up and it's a good thing about writing for TV is you and for film is you get you haven't got time to just sit around and not write. So I get up you know, early, the kids go off to school, and what I do is essentially put horror films on all day back to back, and they're just in the background while I'm working. Sometimes I
Are
don't
they
watch
watching
any
them?
of it.
Are
Sorry,
they,
mate.
are they watching them with you?
Yeah, if the kids can watch horror with me, I will. What did I watch today? I watched three movies, and the last one I watched was A Matter of Life and Death, Powell and Press.
Oh, love that. Absolutely.
That was the last thing I watched. Then I had to go out and get the kids. But I just find, you know, I kind of think if you're going to write horror and genre, and then you should kind of douse yourself in it as much as possible.
Right.
Uh,
Swim in those
And in
water.
a way, you know, it's to try and not potentially write what you're watching and to try and write something unique. And you think, well, I've seen this a lot. I see this in lots of horror films, but you know what? I've never seen this. Or you know, that's probably why I do it too.
Are there particular horror films that you find more soothing or
Uh, okay, no, not really. I mean, if I'm soothed by a horror film, it probably means they're not doing their job right. I mean, I think maybe stuff like Poltergeist and Exorcist and Omen, I'm soothed in as much as I've watched those films for 40 years, and me having ADHD, because I know them all so incredibly well, there is a soothingness to it in terms of my brain's like, oh, thank God you're with Father Merrin, you're safe. But you know, if I'm watching a modern horror and it's not making me feel like the fuck's that, you know, then it probably hasn't done its job right, or it hasn't tried hard enough.
I
right?
think Poltergeist is a good example in there because obviously that's got a bit of humor in there too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's also relatable. You know, you're in a family and there's a child going missing in a house, possibly in the television. And I just
Yeah,
think, what a great premise, you know.
yeah. And I mean, if you look at the character of Tangina as well, I mean, she's hugely comical when she comes in, but she's fucking, you know, she does it.
Exactly. Bruce, how would you describe directing Nick Frost?
Honestly, it was extraordinarily easy because Nick has a very, very strong work ethic and also an understanding of film. He has a film knowledge which is incredible, and I'm just learning now that because he watched three or four films a day, but also he was able to inhabit this character in a way that a lot of people don't, and I'm not talking about methodology. I'm not talking about like a method acting type of thing. I'm talking about someone practically putting themselves in a seat, learning how to drive a cab, making sure that that place that he's living in for the next 4 weeks is his own, and that commitment to that, plus also learning his lines and knowing how to deliver them, and being open to be pushed a bit about how about doing it like this, how about doing it like that, and then also because of the world I was coming from, I was very, very, comfortable thinking, let's open something up for these actors to do, to know when everyone knows what they're doing and they know what everyone else is doing as well, it makes my job so much easier. And Nick is that kind of actor. So we were able to bring in newer elements. I mean, earlier on, I was reminding Nick that the whole reference to, Sinerva's character as Rabbit was both very, very haunting, but also very witty, because it would have been a reference to his own child and her lost child and childhood as well. And Nick also having a childlike quality to him. So it's those little bits that you allow you want to control the set, of course, and you want to keep things moving along and you want to make sure you shoot the pages, etc. But at the same time, you have to be alive to the fact that of what you're filming. So at any opportunity, if you've got an opportunity to create that kind of stuff, you're like, yeah, Nick, let's run with that. Sure, we have to kind of maybe call our producer, but as Nick was the producer, I just had to call him. And it was very easy because he was in a cab. He was in a cab all the time.
Yeah, whatever you need, Bruce.
Well, thank you for that. One last question for you before I say goodbye. But Nick, we're all excited about the upcoming Star Wars project, Skeleton Crew. We know you're playing a droid in there, but will you also appear as yourself or another character in there, or like?
Okay, well, that was always my fear, that now I'm going to be a droid, then that's the only thing I'll be. But I got a nice message, a personal message from Jon Favreau to say, just because you've been a voice doesn't mean we're not going to see you live action at some point. So who knows? If they need like a slightly overweight Welsh Jedi, then I'm in. I'll do it.
You're there, right? Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen, and congratulations on all this.
Thanks, Greg. Cheers, man. Have a good day.
Be well.
Cheers, man. Bye-bye.